Welcome to my channel, or if for some reason this isn't the first time you're seeing me, welcome back to my channel. I am going to start going into other topics soon. I'm working on another video that I really want to just get right. Until then, I did want to put a little something out that I've been wanting to talk about, but I've been having a really hard time feeling equipped to handle the discussion. I am opening myself up to something that I may not be entirely ready for, and I guess that's just what I've decided to do. So I've kind of tried to put out there a little bit that we really need to start thinking about Poppy's age, how old she was, and the environment that she was in when this all started. And I've gotten a lot of responses that I think are probably from like really young people who say, well, she was 19 years old. She was a grown adult. For most people that I know, the worst choices that they ever made in their life were made between the ages of like 18 and 21. And I think that's a big part because you have that freedom. You, at 16 years old, you don't really have a whole lot of freedom to make really terrible life-altering choices. But once you become a young adult, in my experience, in my life, and in most of the people who are close to me's lives, the worst choices that they have made have been between those ages. I don't understand the comments of, well, she was 19, she was a grown adult. It just doesn't mesh with my life experience and my understanding of what genuine adult experiences are like. I wanted to talk about a situation that I saw play out from start to finish with somebody who I was really close to. She actually moved in with me when she was 17 because of another situation that was going on in her life, and we lived together from when she was 17 until she was a little after 18. And we still stayed kind of close. She made a lot of decisions that I struggled to be okay with, in part because when she moved in with me, it was under the pretense of me being her legal guardian. And I was only 18. She was 17, I was 18. I was her legal guardian. And so when she started making really bad decisions at 18, I was like, oh crap, her mom is gonna kill me. Eventually it just got to a point where I stopped blaming myself for her choices because I realized nobody else was blaming me for her choices. And I started to try and support her and be there for her. And, some things happened in her life, but she was fine. She was safe. It was whatever. I didn't approve, but she was safe, so whatever. When she is 19 and I am 20, she starts dating this guy. I'm just gonna say I have no problem with age gap relationships. That's not something I have a problem with. But I was 20, my friend was dating this guy who was like 40 and she was 19. And I was like, well, I don't know, that's kind of weird. I didn't like it. Basically with that, I guess I'll call it bias in mind, I immediately started looking up this guy and I was like, what the hell is my friend getting into? I looked this guy up and I find that he doesn't only have a domestic violence charge from his ex-wife, but also from his ex-girlfriend and his sister. I'm freaked the fuck out. I'm like, girl, what are you getting into? This guy is scary. He has assaulted multiple women in the past. Like, here is their statements. Here's what they've said about him. And she says, oh yeah, no, he's told me about all that. He told me about all that. Like, he's not keeping it a secret from me. He told me everything that went down between them, but it didn't go down the way they said it. And, he got charged with things he shouldn't have been charged with because they lied. What really happened in their relationship was that they were the abusers. They were the ones who were using him and all this stuff. And I mean, my first instinct was to be like, you fucking batshit crazy? Like, this is 3 separate people, including his sister. But 20 is still kind of young. Those previous 20 years hadn't given me any experience with abusive relationships like that. I had never really seen anything like that in my life. And so I just kind of believed her. I was older than her and I was her guardian at one point, but she was the smarter friend in a lot of aspects. She understood people a lot better than I did. And so when she tells me no, look, I heard the whole story, I heard it before you did, and I heard the full story. You only have half the story. I said, okay, all right, well, I'm here for you, or whatever. So the start of their relationship seemed really good. I was really impressed with the way he treated her. This is my friend who I care about, and this guy was nicer to her than a lot of other guys I'd seen her with, and she was telling me all these great things that he did and how great he was. And I always thought it was a little weird that anytime I hung out with him too, he would sprinkle in a little this or that about his crazy exes, but you know, people have their quirks, I guess, and as a 20-year-old, I wasn't thinking critically about the little offhanded comments that people made. I always let these comments that didn't divulge into full conversations just kind of float away. I don't do that so much anymore. Eventually the situation got to a point where she was living with him and she was attached to him in very serious ways. And he began to get abusive, very abusive. I called the police multiple times to get welfare checks on her because she would be talking to me about wanting to leave him and then not respond to my messages for weeks at a time. I would be having the police go and check on her, and the police would just tell me, like, she said everything's fine, we can't do anything. She said everything's fine. Even after she realized that he was abusive to her, and he was physically abusive to her, he was awful. He was terrifying. And there were situations that happened in front of me that made me tell her that, like, I can't put my safety at risk for you. I can't come to your house and be in a situation where somebody's going to be aggressive in front of me, and I have to make the choice of whether I'm going to risk escalating the situation by defending you or just sit by and watch. Like, that was the situation I was put in as a friend. And the situation she was in that relationship was so far beyond even that. I do know that she's not with this guy. She hasn't been with him in quite a few years. Getting out of that relationship was really hard for her, despite having pretty much every necessary resource. At the time, I was able to help her with a lot of logistical things. She had people who were willing to let her live with them. And it still wasn't this thing that it was like, okay, great, there's a place to go. I know that he's a bad guy. I'm leaving. Like, that wasn't what it was like. So I guess all I wanted to do here was just kind of, first of all, present the age issue, the fact that a lot of people just really seem to think that, the day you turn 18, that is the prime of your emotional and mental development, and that is far, far, far from true. Being 18 years old, 19 years old, 20 years old, being newly independent and still being extremely immature, extremely vulnerable, extremely influenceable. I think that those are all things that we as a society really need to start considering, because we put young people out into the world as adults. We expect them to be full-grown adults they weren't the day before they turned 18. It's not how it works. And I'm really just sick of people acting like there's only 16 years old, vulnerable, not culpable for their mistakes, and 19 years old, completely full-grown adult who has all the power in the world to withstand any manipulation. I think that that's ridiculous. And I also wanted to just talk about a situation that I've seen where somebody had every reason to believe that somebody was abusive and a bad person before they even got in that situation. But that person was able to manipulate and make it seem like everybody who had ever said anything negative about him was crazy. And these charges were, they were unjustified, and that he got screwed over by the courts because the courts hate men. To me, it's ridiculous that we are on these two sides that are both just seem really unjustified to be a part of. On one hand, you have people who are saying, Poppy is guilty. She is 100% aware of what she's doing. She wants to be doing it because she's a mean, mean person. I mean, maybe. I suppose that's possible. But what you're kind of saying here is that you believe that Titanic Sinclair is this horrible person who did all of these horrible things to an ex-girlfriend, but that it's literally not even a consideration that he could be doing these things to somebody else. I'm really nervous about posting this. I have been nervous the whole time making it. I'm sure I'm all over the place. I'm going to try and edit this down so that it makes sense if possible. I am not on either camp regarding Poppy's motivations. I am really curious, extremely curious to know what they are, but I don't think we have enough information to figure that out. I personally feel like we can support Mars and support this entire Believe Women movement without assigning blame to somebody who could potentially be another victim. At least until we have more information. That's all I can film today without absolutely having an anxiety attack. This has just been really hard for me to film. I'm feeling like I'm not getting my points across, and yet at the same time I feel like what I have to say might be important. If you want to see me do whatever the hell I'm doing right now some other time, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be trying to make a couple of videos a week, not just about the Mars Argo situation, but I will try and stay updated on that as details come out. Okay, I'm going to stop recording now. Bye!